All right, Unit 5, Video 2, Solve Systems by Substitution. So again, these equations can be solved by graphing. And then now I'm going to teach you how to solve the same equation by substitution. Okay. However, what happens is sometimes graphing is easier, sometimes substitution is easier. Okay. This is an example of why substitution would be easy because, first of all, when we graph, we like our equations to be in slope-intercept form. So we like it to be y equals mx plus b. It's easy to graph. Well, neither one of these equations are in slope-intercept form. Okay. Now, we're going to substitute, and the reason we're going to substitute is because one of these equations already says x equals something. Okay, so has an x or a y isolated. So when you substitute, you want to make sure the x or the y is isolated. Okay, in this case, the x is isolated. Okay, so then all I have to do is take it and substitute it into the other equation. Okay, this is probably one of the hardest ones to get, but once you get it, it's probably one of the more ones people choose to use. Okay. All right, so first one. So we have our two equations. Says y equals 2x plus 7 and negative 7x plus 2y equals 23. Okay. Now again, the first thing you need to notice is that one equation is solved for either x or y, and the top one is. Okay, so again, the first thing you're doing is making sure it's solved for x or y. Okay? And that one's solved for y. Okay, so when you get that, I always put a box around it because we're going to use that here in a little bit. You're going to sub that into the other equation. Okay, so here's where you have to be careful. It says y equals something. So I have a choice. I can substitute it in for the x, or I can substitute it in for the y. But since it says y equals, I'm going to substitute in for the y. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2x plus 7 and then replace it with the y. So what you want to do is you want to write down negative 7x plus 2. Now again, instead of that y, we're going to put what y equals, which is 2x plus 7, and then equals 23. Okay. Now I know that's a big substitution, but it's just a substitution. Okay, so you've done that probably since middle school. Okay, so you're going to take one equation and substitute it into the other. So we're going to take and sub into other equation. Okay. Now once we've done that, you're going to solve for the variable. So you're going to solve. Now make sure you only have one variable. In this case, we have two variables, but there's x's. So you can't have an x and a y. So I'm going to take this now, and I'm going to solve for my x. So negative 7x, I'm going to distribute my 2, and I get 4x plus 14 equals 23. All right, so now I have like terms. So negative 7x and 4x is negative 3x plus 14 equals 23. Now it's a two-step equation. Okay, and that gives me 9. Divide by negative 3. And so x equals negative 3. Okay, now I'm going to start my answer. That's my x value, so I'm going to put it where x would go. Okay. All right, so if x equals negative 3. But remember, the answer is where they meet on a coordinate plane. So you need an x value and a y value. Okay, so now we got to take and find the y value. And so this is where that box up here is going to come in handy. Okay, so we have, I'm going to take and I'm going to plug it back in place of the x. Okay, so step 4. You're going to sub answer into equation. Now you can actually sub it into any equation, either one, but the one that you put a box around is always the easiest one. Okay. So now I have y equals 2. Now instead of x, I know that that equals negative 3 plus 7. Okay. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 plus 7 is 1. So y equals 1. So I'm going to put that in place of the 1. And there's my answer. Okay. So if we were to graph this, they would meet at negative 3, 1. They would meet right there if we were to graph these two equations. All right, next one. Okay, so again, same steps. Again, substitution is only going to be done when we have an x or a y isolated. So there I have my y isolated. It just happens to be the second one. And I'm going to plug it into the y in the other equation. Okay, so we have 6x plus 7. Now instead of the y, I'm going to put negative 3x plus 12 and then equals 9. Okay. Now again, make sure you only have one variable, meaning you can have more than one x, but you don't have an x and a y. So both our variables are x's, so we're good. Okay, so now I'm going to solve it. So I have 6x. I'm going to distribute my 7, which is negative 21x, plus 7, let's see, 84 equals 9. Okay, so we have 6x minus 21x, which is negative 15x, plus 84 equals 9. Subtract 84. Okay, and then that gives me negative 75. So x equals, and 15, so 2 would be negative 5. Oops, sorry, positive 5, because that's a negative 75. So x equals 5. So now I have what x equals, so I know that. Now I'm looking for my y. So again, I'm going to plug it back in to, again, the one with the box. It's a lot easier. So I have y equals negative 3, and instead of x, I'm going to put a 5 there. Okay, so negative 3 and 15 is negative, I'm sorry, it's 5 is negative 15 plus 12. So y equals negative 3. Okay, and then my answer is 5, 3. Negative 3, sorry. Okay, now again, this is the answer. Okay, these two that I circled are the work, but this one, the actual point, if it were on a graph, what would it look like is the actual answer. All right, now word problem. Okay, Sarah has a collection of 24 movies and Chelsea has a collection of 14 movies. Sarah is adding 1 movie a month to her collection and Chelsea is adding 3 movies a month to her collection. Find the number of months after which they will have the same amount of movies. Okay, so this one, we want them to be equal to each other. Okay, so let's look at Sarah. Sarah has 24 movies, okay, but then she adds 1 movie a month. Okay, so she has 1 movie per month plus the 24 she has. Okay, Chelsea has, let's see, she has 14 movies. Okay, and she's adding 3 movies a month to hers. And we want to know after how many months are they even. So this one's where we're going to put them equal to each other. Okay, now we have variables on both sides. So I'm going to move my 1m over. So if 24 equals, that's 2m plus 14. Subtract 14. And m equals 5. So it would be 5 months, and they would have the same amount of movies. Okay. All right, that's it. We'll go to the next one.